Application for the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, for 2026 are officially open. The Higher Education Department says new digital platforms will make it faster and simpler for students to apply, with the goal of finalising approvals before the new academic year begins. The deadline for applications is 15 November, and government says this new approach is part of broader efforts to ensure readiness across the higher education sector. At the same time, student bodies have raised concerns about the challenges learners face at the start of the year, from funding delays to accommodation shortages. Joining us to unpack this is the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Nomusa Ncube, as well as the elected member of the South African Union of Students and Wits SRC President Nombulelo, Chiya. Nombulelo, I perhaps want to start the conversation with you. Earlier in the week, we heard the Minister of Higher Education, Butimana Mela, announce interventions as far as NSFAS funding crises are concerned. What's your reaction to the proposed announcements?
Thank you so much. Greetings to everyone. I think following the announcements that was made by the Minister, mine is to say that going to NSFAS applications in the year 2026, really, there must be deeper interventions from the sector of higher education in trying to assist students to be able to navigate through the process. Because if you look historically at how applications have taken place through NSFAS, you can be able to observe that there have been challenges in terms of administration, in terms of the process, and the project itself. So there hasn't been a clear line of march in terms of how NSFAS is able to show how applications are done. You have students who applied for NSFAS, but they're being told that they applied at the wrong trimester. So they are now enrolled in universities. They qualify to be funded by NSFAS, but then they're not funded because it's a wrong application that they've been able to do. And when we try to reach out to these NSFAS officials, we also still find a challenge, whereby they're not able to restructure these applications. They're not able to try and resolve these matters as soon as possible. Because you find these students who are now being at the risk of being evicted in their residences because they've done a wrong application. They're being evicted in their residences because they couldn't complete their applications, or because their graduation or perhaps their registration proof was not sent on time to NSFAS, or NSFAS couldn't send the list to the university on time. So there are these different challenges that students are still facing. And to say that in these upcoming applications also for the year 2026, it will continue to happen. And ours as student leaders is to say, can there be a clear process of applications for students who are applying for NSFAS, so that they don't find a struggle and get enrolled in universities, finding themselves without funding when they clearly qualify to be funded by NSFAS.
Yeah, and the minister put together, of course, this multidisciplinary war room, which includes, by the way, student representation, which include administrators, as well as not just university administrators, but also departmental administrators, in order to fix some of these problems. And certainly there's an effort, at least on part of the minister this time around, to make sure that it's streamlined and that the turnaround time in fixing some of these issues in that war room are much more quicker. Are you positive about that?
I think one thing we must be able to outline is that we appreciate the efforts of the minister to be able to put a war room whereby there's contributions from different parties as to how we can be able to resolve these matters. I mean, we can't just be able to come and say there's these particular challenges, but then don't come in front when there's an opportunity for us to be able to resolve them. So I highly believe that in this particular war room, there can be some contributions that will be able to assist these particular students. And I highly believe that even the student representatives who are in those war rooms will be able to present students in trying to resolve these issues. But mine from my side is to say that it's not new issues that we're facing. These administrative issues we're facing from NSFAS, they are not absolutely new. So it's to encourage even NSFAS officials, even NSFAS colleagues, for them to be able to step up, because it's not the first time we'll be speaking about these issues. Yes, we appreciate the efforts of having a war room, because that's how we can be able to address some matters. If there's a matter that has to do with student issues, if there's a matter that has to do with NSFAS, student reps will be there to present students in trying to address those particular matters. But mine is to say it must go beyond the war room. We cannot end it in the war room. What has been discussed in the war room must be implemented. What are the solutions brought forward by student leaders must be implemented. They cannot be able to listen, but then don't take the suggestions that come with students. So they must be able to listen, proposals coming from the war room, implement them.
Deputy Minister, I want to bring you in here. Allocating funds to a war room is one thing to fix the administration thereof, but allocating funds to the administration of NSFAS altogether to make sure that every student who applies and qualifies is duly funded is another. NSFAS is underfunded as we speak. What is the intervention there by government and cabinet to turn that around?
Yes, thank you very much. What we have done, the minister has announced when he addressed the nation on Monday, our state of readiness for the 2026 academic year. But what we have done for all the problems that the students have been facing for this year is that we've managed to find 13 billion money from our reprioritizing our budget to make sure that we wiped out every problem that was there in the system. We know that there were students during the year that either got defunded or they couldn't access their sites in order for them to see whether they're funded or not. There were also problems with the institutions. There were problems with accommodation, which was not paid. And all of those problems have been quantified, and we've managed to find the money to make sure that all the outstanding fees are paid, to all institutions and to all the private accommodation service providers. So we are very confident that moving to 2026, we are planning better. We are also making sure that NSFAS administers, the applications, the way that is transparent, the way that it's easy to understand, but also the way that is easy for even the kids that are in the rural areas, for them to access NSFAS and also those loans.
Deputy Minister, can you give students across the country the assurance that their accommodation, tuition and allowances and stipends will be paid on time in the 2026 academic year?
We can definitely say that for this academic year, as I said, 2025, all the problems that the students have been facing will be resolved. 2026, what we are saying to NSFAS, because let me tell you what the reason has been. The problem that we have right now, NSFAS is just open for the applications for 2026 academic year. The students are applying until November when NSFAS closes. Now, what happens is that NSFAS does not know how many students are going to apply. And by the time when they close, they realize that they have so much money that is available from the National Treasury. And that is where the problems start. We are now saying to NSFAS, work with the universities, work with all the institutions to understand the numbers, because we already know how many students are coming from grade 12. We already know how many students are in the system. Work with those numbers so that at least when you realize that you do not have enough money, it doesn't disadvantage the student, but it also doesn't frustrate the students that are supposed to focus on their studies.
Deputy Minister, that's all we have time for. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Nombulelo, thank you so much for joining us as well. Really do appreciate it. That's all the time we have for here on the Week in Review.